Alex stepped onto the train slowly, letting the warmth of the carriage envelop them. The soft glow from the lamps above gave the wooden interior a comforting, almost timeless atmosphere. Outside, the last flickers of town lights had faded, leaving only the vast expanse of fields, forests, and rivers glimmering faintly in the moonlight. The train began to move, a gentle, steady motion that felt like a heartbeat in the quiet night. Alex settled into a window seat, their eyes tracing the landscape that passed slowly by, each scene melting into the next with a calm, hypnotic rhythm. There was a profound sense of detachment from the world left behind. The noise of the city, the hurried footsteps, the endless errands, all seemed to exist in another universe entirely. Here, the air felt lighter, and time itself seemed to stretch, elongated by the constant motion of the train and the serenity of the night. Alex's thoughts drifted effortlessly, untethered, like leaves carried along a slow-moving stream, touching memories both distant and comforting. The river that came into view reflected the moonlight in a long silver ribbon that wound through the darkened landscape. Trees leaned gently over its banks, their branches brushing against the water in a soft, deliberate dance. Alex traced the movement of the shadows across the ripples, feeling the stillness of the scene sink deep into their mind. The simple act of watching, uninterrupted, brought a sense of peace that was nearly physical, like a gentle weight lifting from the shoulders. As the train continued, small villages appeared in the distance. The lights from windows, muted and golden, glimmered through the night as if the houses themselves were breathing quietly in their slumber. Alex imagined the lives within those walls, fleeting and unobserved, a parallel existence that was intimate, yet entirely removed from their own journey. Each passing building was a reminder of the quiet pulse of life that continued regardless of the train's motion, a soothing constant in an ever-changing world. Alex leaned their head against the window, the faint chill of the glass cool against their skin. Their gaze softened, letting the mind wander freely. Childhood memories rose slowly, unforced. A wooden bridge over a creek, the smell of rain-soaked earth, evenings spent reading in bed while the wind pressed against the windows. These recollections mingled with the present, creating a fluid, dreamlike sequence of comfort and familiarity. In this way, the train did not simply carry Alex through the night. It carried them through layers of time and thought, each mile blending seamlessly into the next. The monotony of the rails, the gentle sway of the carriage, created a rhythm that was almost meditative. Alex closed their eyes for a moment, imagining each turn of the track as a slow exhale, each click of the wheels as a pulse that aligned with their own breathing. It was not sleep, yet it was not fully wakefulness either. It was a quiet liminality, a space between worlds where the ordinary concerns of life held no sway. The train's movement was the only anchor, a soft but steady assurance that the journey was both external and internal, unfolding in parallel. Hours seemed to pass without urgency. The scenery shifted imperceptibly from fields to dense forests, the trees standing tall like silent sentinels in the moonlight. Shadows moved across the ground, subtle and fluid, shaped by the soft contours of the land. Alex noted these movements without judgment or expectation, simply absorbing the slow, unfolding story of the night. Each detail felt significant, yet inconsequential, a paradox that was strangely liberating. In the far corner of the carriage, an older man sat alone, absorbed in the pages of a worn book. Alex glanced occasionally, feeling a sense of comfort in the quiet companionship of another traveler, even if no words were exchanged. There was a shared rhythm here, unspoken yet palpable. The steady movement of the train, the soft illumination of the carriage, and the silence that allowed both individuals to exist fully within themselves. Thoughts drifted to moments of solitude in other places, recollections of afternoons spent wandering alone in forests or along the shore, listening to the wind or the waves. The train mirrored those memories in its slow, deliberate passage, each mile an echo of another time, another place. Alex felt a profound connection to these quiet moments, as though the train itself had been constructed from the fabric of remembered peace, carrying them gently along its tracks towards something both unknown and deeply familiar. As the train emerged from a dense grove of trees, a faint glimmer of mist appeared, hanging over a low-lying river. The silver reflection of the moon shimmered in the water, undisturbed and complete. Alex studied the interplay of light and shadow, noticing the delicate sway of reeds along the bank, the subtle ripple of the water as it curved around stones. It was a scene of such understated perfection that it seemed to exist outside time, an eternal moment captured in the flow of movement. The train passed through a small station, its platform empty and silent, except for a few forgotten benches. The brief glimpse of the building, illuminated by a single lamp, felt like a pause in the journey, a small heartbeat of stillness in the otherwise endless night. Alex's mind lingered on the station for longer than expected, imagining the stories that might have unfolded there, the lives that had intersected for fleeting moments and then dispersed into the vastness of the world. By now, the night had deepened, and the train became a vessel of uninterrupted thought. The rhythmic motion carried Alex into a state where reflection and observation intertwined seamlessly. The mind wandered freely among memories and musings, the landscape outside providing both context and contrast to the inner world. Fields stretched endlessly, forests rose in shadowed grandeur, and the occasional flicker of distant lights suggested habitation without intrusion. Alex's breathing slowed, matching the cadence of the train. A sense of anticipation mingled with serenity, not an expectation of destination, but an awareness of being in transit, both physically and mentally. It was a rare clarity, the kind that comes only in moments removed from obligation, responsibility, or urgency. Each thought, each memory, each observation was held lightly, like a leaf on a stream, unhurried, unclaimed, yet completely present. The train began a gradual ascent, climbing gently along the contours of low hills. The movement was imperceptible at first, almost imperceptibly lifting the mind along with the carriage. Alex felt the subtle shift in perspective, noticing how the field spread below like patchwork, how the shadows lengthened and bent with the undulating terrain. A faint breeze filtered through the partially open window, carrying the scent of damp earth and distant pine. The night was alive in the subtlest ways, yet entirely silent in its expression. For a long stretch, the train followed a river valley, the water gleaming faintly in the moonlight. Alex watched as the current twisted and turned, carrying reflections of the sky and trees, creating a constantly evolving pattern of light and dark. There was an unexpected poetry in the simplicity of it, a quiet reminder that life often unfolded in patterns too subtle for the hurried mind to notice. Here, aboard the moving carriage, each detail became a meditation, each moment a story unto itself. Memories surfaced again, more vivid this time. Alex recalled the small joys of childhood, the smell of wet soil after a rainstorm, the gentle warmth of sunlight on a late afternoon, the soft laughter shared with friends under a sprawling oak tree. These recollections were not grand or dramatic, but they carried weight in their quiet significance. The train became a bridge connecting past and present, transporting Alex through layers of experience and feeling. Time, in this context, seemed irrelevant. The journey was not measured in hours or minutes, but in moments of attention and reflection. Each passing mile was a marker of presence rather than progress, a gentle unfolding of experience rather than a race toward a destination. Alex allowed themselves to sink fully into the rhythm of the ride, surrendering to the gentle ebb and flow of the train and the night beyond the windows. The older man in the corner shifted slightly, adjusting the pages of his book, yet remained a calm presence in the periphery. Alex noticed small details, the way his hands rested lightly on the worn leather cover, the faint crease of a smile as he read, the quiet patience in his posture. There was an unspoken sense of continuity here, a recognition that the journey was shared in some intangible way, even across the distance between them. As the train continued to wind through the night, Alex felt a subtle shift in awareness. The world outside and the world inside began to merge, thoughts and scenery flowing into one another. Memories were no longer discrete moments, but part of a continuous stream, interwoven with the present. It was as if the night itself had taken form, shaping experience, reflection, and observation into a single, cohesive tapestry. The train glided on, its motion steady and unhurried, carrying Alex deeper into the night. The landscape transformed gradually. Open fields gave way to clusters of trees that seemed almost ancient, their trunks thick and gnarled, roots hidden beneath layers of shadow. Each bend in the track revealed a new scene. A narrow creek winding between hills, a solitary farmhouse dimly illuminated, smoke curling lazily from its chimney. Alex's eyes absorbed each detail with quiet fascination, letting the subtle patterns of nature soothe and occupy the mind. Thoughts drifted naturally into reflection. The journey was not just physical, but temporal. Memories arose like the mist over the river valleys, delicate and insubstantial, yet vivid in their essence. Alex thought of earlier journeys, times of solitude that had always carried a strange blend of clarity and melancholy. A train ride long ago, through the same countryside, flickered into consciousness. A distant memory, almost unreal, but tangible enough to stir a gentle warmth. With each mile, the air seemed to grow softer, cooler, as if the night itself were breathing. The occasional rustle of leaves on the trees outside, the faint shimmer of a field under moonlight, all merged into a quiet, enveloping symphony of stillness. Alex noticed the small things. The subtle sway of the carriage when the tracks curved, the muted reflection of their own face in the window, the tiny variations of shadow across the interior walls. Each observation was held lightly, without judgment or need for interpretation, simply experienced. Time flowed differently here. Minutes and hours felt less relevant than the continuum of experience. Thoughts moved with the train, sometimes slowing, sometimes drifting in unexpected directions. Alex considered the concept of home, of belonging. Was it a place, a memory, or a feeling carried quietly in the chest? Perhaps it was all of these, combined and layered like the landscapes sliding past the window. The notion was comforting, a soft anchor amidst the endless night. Gradually, the train began to ascend a gentle incline. The countryside stretched below, revealing patterns unnoticed before. The precise symmetry of fields, the random scatter of stones and shrubs, the delicate shimmer of morning dew caught on leaves in faint moonlight. Alex felt an odd mixture of awe and familiarity, a recognition of how small details can embody the vastness of experience. It was a lesson in noticing, in quiet observation, in the acceptance of impermanence and change. A brief pause occurred at a rural station, long abandoned except for the empty platform and a single lamppost swaying in a gentle breeze. The train slowed, a soft hiss of brakes accompanying its momentary stillness. Alex imagined the lives that had once intersected here. Travelers stepping onto or off the train, brief reunions, quiet departures, a scattering of presence that left only echoes. The emptiness was not lonely, but meditative, a space that allowed reflection to settle fully. As the train resumed its journey, Alex noticed the older man again. He had shifted slightly, closing his book for a brief moment to gaze out the window. There was something in his posture, a quiet reverence, a hint of recognition, as if he too understood the subtleties of this night and its passage. Alex felt an unspoken connection, a shared understanding that transcended words. The carriage, with its soft lights and rhythmic motion, had become a small, private world, one where observation and reflection flowed together seamlessly. Memories continued to emerge, unbidden and vivid. Alex recalled childhood moments of quiet exploration, walking along rivers at dawn, listening to wind rustling through pines, discovering small creatures hidden among stones. These memories carried a sense of completeness, as though each had been carefully preserved and then gently released into consciousness at the right moment. There was a subtle lesson here. The small, almost invisible details of life hold more significance than one might imagine. The night deepened further, and a mist began to rise over the fields and forests. Its presence softened the outlines of distant hills and trees, blending them into an almost impressionistic vision. Alex felt the world become dreamlike, each detail floating between reality and imagination. The train, steady in its course, was the only constant, a slow, comforting pulse connecting all the disparate elements into a coherent whole. And then came the first hints of strangeness. Alex noticed a faint familiarity in the patterns of the landscape, the curves of the river, the alignment of trees, even the way the train curved through the valleys seemed uncannily precise, almost deliberate. A memory flared, one Alex could not immediately place, of a journey long ago through a similar countryside. The shapes and forms were the same, yet the feeling was subtly altered, infused with something deeper, almost uncanny. The older man shifted again, his gaze briefly meeting Alex's through the reflection in the window. A sense of recognition passed silently between them, subtle yet profound, as though acknowledging a truth that was known but not spoken. Alex felt a quiet tremor of curiosity, a gentle nudge in the chest that suggested something significant lingered beneath the surface of the journey. Alex's mind wandered to questions of identity, time, and memory. Was this night merely a continuation of familiar patterns, or was it something else entirely? The sense of déjà vu grew, not as disorientation, but as a comforting tether to a reality beyond immediate perception. The boundaries between past, present, and imagined future felt fluid, almost as if the train was moving not only through the landscape, but also through layers of consciousness itself. The train began to slow as it approached another small station, this one seemingly untouched by human presence for decades. The platform stretched empty and silent, and the building, though intact, looked aged in a way that suggested long years of quiet neglect. Alex felt drawn to the structure, sensing a story woven into its walls, a history waiting to be remembered. But the train did not stop. It continued its gentle ascent along the track, leaving the station behind like a fleeting thought. Hints of the plot twist began to emerge more clearly. The landscape, the reflections, even the older man seemed to occupy a space between reality and memory. Alex felt an inexplicable connection to this world, as though it had always been part of them, hidden beneath layers of ordinary perception. There was no fear, only a deepening sense of anticipation, as if the next moments of the journey would reveal a truth long known but never fully recognized. Alex's attention drifted inward, exploring the subtle emotions stirred by the night and its movement. A profound calmness mingled with curiosity, a quiet excitement tempered by the soft, steady rhythm of the train. The journey was no longer just a passage through physical space. It was a voyage through memory, awareness, and perception itself. Each mile traveled felt like a step deeper into understanding, a slow peeling away of the surface to reveal the essence beneath. The train rounded another bend, entering a section of dense forest. Moonlight filtered through the branches, creating intricate patterns on the carriage walls and across Alex's hands resting on the windowsill. The sensation was hypnotic, a visual meditation that drew attention to the present moment. And yet, underlying this sense of presence was an awareness of something more, a subtle acknowledgement that the night was guiding them toward a revelation, one that would soon make the journey's purpose unmistakably clear. As Alex continued to observe, they realized that the older man's presence was not incidental. There was an intentionality in his calm demeanor, in the way he moved and watched the world pass by. A quiet recognition stirred in Alex's chest. This man, the landscape, the train itself, all were part of a larger, coherent pattern. Slowly, imperceptibly, a sense of inevitability settled over Alex. This journey was not simply a night train through familiar scenery. It was something deeper, something that had always existed, waiting to be realized. The forest gradually thinned, giving way to open fields, yet a stillness persisted, unbroken and absolute. Alex felt as if time itself had slowed, each moment stretching in a quiet, almost imperceptible pulse. The zui, rhythmic hum of the train on the rails acted as a soft anchor, grounding them in the present, even as the mind wandered into past recollections and unspoken reflections. In the distance, faint lights appeared, scattered across the landscape, like distant stars pressed against the earth. Their soft golden glow invited contemplation. Alex imagined the lives unfolding behind each window, moments of quiet domesticity, gentle laughter, perhaps a solitary figure lost in thought. Each scene felt intimately familiar, yet untouchable, a parallel reality running alongside the train's path. Memories surfaced unbidden, as if drawn forth by the gentle motion of the train. Alex recalled evenings spent on quiet streets as a child, the smell of rain on cobblestones, the faint flicker of lamps in the fog. They remembered the feeling of anticipation while waiting for a train long ago, the mingling of excitement and calm, the small comfort of rhythmic motion as the carriage carried them forward. The present mirrored these memories in subtle ways, evoking a sense of déjà vu that was soothing rather than disorienting. Gradually, the train passed through a narrow valley, and Alex noticed the reflection of the moonlight on a small stream that wound like silver thread through the landscape. There was something almost hypnotic about the way the water flowed, its curves echoing the gentle sway of the carriage. Thoughts drifted further inward, moving through layers of consciousness. Questions about time, memory, and self mingled with the serene observations of the night. It felt as though the journey was not only through space, but also through the contours of the mind. The older man remained a quiet presence. Though Alex had barely exchanged a glance with him, his calmness seemed to radiate, subtly influencing the carriage's atmosphere. Alex became aware that their attention was drawn to him repeatedly, though not by choice. There was a feeling of inevitability in it, as if the man existed as a guide, a silent companion whose purpose was woven into the journey itself. A soft sense of recognition began to rise within Alex, faint but undeniable. There were flashes of familiarity in the scenery, the shapes of the hills, the positioning of trees, the flow of streams. Something from long ago, half forgotten, tugged at their consciousness. The feeling was not unsettling. It was comforting, a gentle pull toward clarity, a subtle indication that this night and this train were not entirely random. Alex's thoughts meandered into the realm of introspection. They considered the choices that had led to this moment, the paths taken and the ones left behind. There was no judgment, only awareness, a reflective observation of a life lived. Each decision seemed to reverberate softly in memory, like distant echoes carried across the fields outside. The journey became a meditation on cause and effect, on connection and separation, on the subtle threads that weave through existence. The train began to climb again, a slow ascent into higher ground. The landscape below unfurled like a patchwork quilt of shadows and moonlit fields. Alex noticed how the shapes and textures seemed to echo memories that were deeply embedded yet previously inaccessible. It was as if the train were passing not only through geography, but also through layers of personal history, each bend in the track aligned with recollections waiting to surface. A fleeting thought emerged, almost imperceptible. What if the train itself were more than a vehicle? What if it were a bridge, a conduit between the known and the unknown, between waking consciousness and something beyond ordinary perception? Alex allowed the thought to linger without needing to define it, simply observing the feeling it evoked, a mixture of curiosity, wonder, and profound calm. The carriage felt heavier somehow, not physically, but emotionally. The atmosphere was dense with unspoken meaning. Alex noticed that even the subtle sway of the train seemed intentional, as though each movement carried significance beyond mere mechanics. And then came a moment of startling clarity. The older man, sitting quietly with his book, appeared not only familiar but essential, as if he had always existed in the edges of memory, now revealed fully in the present. Alex's awareness began to shift, a gentle widening of perception. The boundaries between past and present blurred. Flashes of other journeys, moments long forgotten, merged with the current landscape. The hills and rivers outside, the carriage, the gentle hum of the rails, all became part of a seamless continuum, a tapestry that encompassed time itself. There was no fear in this realization, only a deepening sense of presence, of belonging, of being exactly where they were meant to be. A subtle emotional resonance arose, one Alex could not immediately name. It was as if the train were speaking in a language without words, communicating something fundamental, essential. Memory, consciousness, and environment intertwined, forming a quiet understanding that this journey was deliberate, meaningful, and singular. The sense of déjà vu grew, yet it was no longer simply familiarity. It was recognition, a soft acknowledgement that this path had been traversed before, and that the present moment contained all that was necessary. The night deepened further. Stars began to scatter across the sky in subtle brilliance, their light reflected in silvered rivers below. Alex's thoughts became more fluid, more receptive. Questions of identity, purpose, and connection surfaced and dissolved without resistance, leaving only an expansive awareness. The train seemed to respond to this stillness, moving with an almost imperceptible grace, guiding Alex along a path that was both external and internal. Subtle hints of the coming revelation appeared. Patterns emerged in the landscape that seemed almost intentional. Hills, streams, and trees aligned in ways that echoed shapes from Alex's past. There was a sense of narrative embedded in the environment itself, a story being told in forms, shadows, and reflections. And then, for the first time, Alex noticed the older man's eyes, catching theirs in the reflection of the window. There was an unmistakable acknowledgement there, quiet yet potent, hinting that what had been invisible was now on the verge of being revealed. Alex allowed themselves to surrender to the experience, letting the awareness expand fully. The train was no longer merely a means of transportation. It had become a vessel of consciousness, a bridge through memory, time, and perception. Every detail, the curvature of the rails, the moonlight on the fields, the subtle reflection in the glass, held significance. And yet, there was no need to decipher it consciously. It existed as a feeling, a knowing that resonated deeply in the chest. The ascent continued, and with it, the sense of inevitability. Alex began to sense a culmination approaching, a moment in which the patterns, the memories, and the quiet guidance of the older man would coalesce into understanding. It was not frightening. It was inevitable, gentle, and completely natural. The night had led to this point, every mile a step toward recognition, every memory a piece of a larger puzzle slowly revealing itself. And still, the journey remained calm, almost dreamlike. Alex's breathing, steady and unhurried, mirrored the rhythm of the rails. Thoughts arose and dissolved effortlessly, leaving a clarity that was both rare and precious. Awareness expanded beyond the boundaries of self, touching the edges of something vast, timeless, and intimately familiar. In this quiet, liminal space, Alex felt the first stirrings of realization that this train, this journey, and this night were not ordinary. They were a convergence of memory, consciousness, and truth. The train continued its slow ascent, carrying Alex into a landscape bathed in a subtle, silvery light. The fields below stretched endlessly, soft shadows tracing the contours of hills and rivers. There was a profound sense of continuity here, as if the night itself were unbroken, a seamless fabric linking every detail, every memory, every thought. Alex felt deeply embedded in this continuity, not as an observer, but as an intrinsic part of it. Their mind wandered through layers of reflection. Memories intertwined with imagination, yet neither felt separate from the present moment. Alex recalled the smallest details from past journeys, the delicate sway of a carriage long forgotten, the faint scent of rain in a distant town, the fleeting glance of a stranger whose presence had lingered in memory. All of these recollections began to coalesce into a quiet understanding that the train was more than a vessel. It was a thread connecting every experience, every choice, every moment of stillness that had shaped their consciousness. A growing sense of familiarity surfaced in the landscape outside. Patterns that had seemed ordinary became significant. Trees, hills, and streams echoed shapes and arrangements Alex had seen before, not merely in memory, but in a way that suggested recognition from deep within. The realization was subtle at first, like a gentle tug at the edges of thought. And then, slowly, the feeling intensified. The train, the scenery, and the older man sitting quietly in the corner were all part of a larger, coherent truth that Alex had yet to fully grasp. The older man's presence became more prominent in awareness. Alex noticed details previously overlooked: the precise way he held the book, the subtle way his eyes reflected the light, the unspoken steadiness in his posture. There was an unyielding calmness to him, yet it carried an unmistakable authority, a knowledge that extended beyond ordinary understanding. Alex sensed, without needing to articulate it, that this man was a guide, a sentinel, a marker along the path to revelation. Thoughts shifted inward, exploring the essence of time and memory. Alex realized that the night, the train, and the journey were not linear experiences. They were layers of consciousness, overlapping and intertwining. Past, present, and imagined futures merged into a single continuum. Each detail, each reflection, each sensation contributed to a growing clarity, a recognition that the world outside the window was simultaneously internal and external, real and symbolic. As the train rounded another bend, the sense of inevitability strengthened. Alex noticed subtle cues in the environment, patterns in the landscape that mirrored thoughts and memories, the positioning of trees like markers along an invisible path, the flowing river reflecting a rhythm that matched the pulse of their own heartbeat. The journey was no longer merely a movement through space. It had become a navigation through consciousness itself. A fleeting thought emerged, almost imperceptible. What if the train and this night had always existed, waiting for this moment of recognition? The suggestion was not alarming. It was strangely comforting, like the gentle unfolding of a story that had always been written but not yet read. Alex allowed the notion to sink into awareness, feeling a subtle expansion in consciousness, a widening of perception that stretched beyond the self. The mist began to thicken slightly, softening the outlines of the hills and fields. Shadows merged into fluid shapes, and Alex's mind found resonance in this gentle ambiguity. There was no need to define what was real and what was imagined. The distinction had become irrelevant. The train moved steadily, as if guiding them along a predetermined path toward understanding. The older man shifted slightly, closing his book for the first time in what felt like hours. His eyes met Alex's in the reflection of the window. There was no recognition in the usual sense, no surprise, no curiosity, but a profound acknowledgement. It was as though he silently communicated a truth that could not be conveyed with words, a certainty that Alex intuitively understood but had not yet fully articulated. Alex's thoughts drifted to questions of identity and purpose. Who were they, truly? What had shaped their journey, not just in this night, but in the entirety of experience? The recognition began to deepen that the train and the man were extensions of understanding, pathways to the realization that life's continuity, memory, and consciousness were intertwined in ways rarely perceived. Each mile carried them closer to insight, each curve in the track aligning with a subtle unfolding of awareness. Hints of the plot twist grew stronger. Alex noticed fragments that felt uncannily familiar, hints in the landscape, shapes in the fields, and the consistent presence of the man that suggested a connection beyond the ordinary. The patterns were unmistakable now, yet the meaning remained just beyond reach, like the final line of a poem glimpsed but not fully read. There was a sense of anticipation, a quiet tension mingled with the profound calm that had accompanied the journey from the beginning. Alex's inner world expanded. Memory and perception, the external landscape, and the subtle rhythm of the train became inseparable. The train's motion seemed synchronized with thoughts and heartbeat, each click of the rails echoing in consciousness. Alex understood, intuitively, that the journey had purpose beyond destination. It was a journey into understanding, a slow, deliberate unveiling of a truth that had always been present but unseen. The ascent continued, and the night grew denser with shadows. The familiar landmarks of rivers, hills, and fields took on a symbolic quality, reflecting inner landscapes of thought and memory. Alex felt as though each detail had been placed with intention, each shape a key to unlocking recognition. And with this awareness came a gentle certainty. The journey's purpose was not merely to travel through the world, but to arrive at understanding within the self. Alex noticed a change in perception of the older man. He no longer seemed simply present in the carriage. He seemed woven into the very fabric of the journey, a living element of the realization about to unfold. Alex felt a quiet reverence, a deepening trust in the path and in the subtle guidance offered by his calm, unwavering presence. The sense of anticipation became almost tangible. Alex recognized that they were approaching a point where observation, memory, and awareness would converge. The train, the night, and the landscape had been preparing them for this revelation. The journey had been deliberate, patient, and exacting, building layer upon layer of quiet recognition until the mind was ready to perceive what had previously remained hidden. And then, as the train curved around a familiar bend, the first full clarity emerged. A subtle realization washed over Alex, unforced but undeniable. The patterns, the presence of the older man, the landscape, and the journey itself were reflections of a deeper truth. Something long familiar, long unnoticed, was now revealing itself. The plot twist, the secret of the journey, was close at hand, and Alex felt a quiet, profound readiness to receive it. The train moved steadily, its rhythm now fully synchronized with Alex's own heartbeat. The world outside had taken on a surreal quality, where the hills, rivers, and forests seemed to pulse in harmony with the carriage's motion. Shadows stretched and shifted with a quiet intelligence, and every detail, the curve of the tracks, the glimmer of moonlight on the water, felt deliberate, purposeful, almost sentient. Alex felt the familiar sense of déjà vu intensify, no longer subtle but insistent, pressing against the edges of awareness. The older man, who had remained silent for the journey's entirety, now seemed to embody the threshold of understanding itself. His calm gaze was steady and unyielding, and Alex felt as though he were both witness and guide, silently confirming what Alex was beginning to perceive. There was no need for words. Everything was communicated through presence, through the subtle alignment of train, night, and consciousness. And then, slowly, almost imperceptibly, Alex understood. The journey was not merely a passage through space or even memory. It was a journey through time itself, a navigation of existence across layers of being. The train, the older man, the landscape, the reflections, all were manifestations of the self, elements of consciousness arranged into a cohesive, living map. The recognition hit like a soft illumination. They were traveling through their own inner reality, through memory, thought, and perception simultaneously. The plot twist unfolded fully in that quiet moment. Alex realized that the older man had never been separate, never been another person in the ordinary sense. He was a reflection, an echo, a guide created by the mind to facilitate understanding. Every subtle gesture, every quiet presence, every glimmer of recognition had been intentional, a bridge between the familiar and the profound. Alex understood that the journey was both literal and metaphorical, and that the train itself was a vessel for consciousness to traverse the hidden corridors of memory and perception. Emotion washed over Alex, a quiet yet overwhelming mixture of awe, relief, and profound peace. Every subtle detail of the night now made sense. The familiar shapes of the hills, the rhythm of the train, the mist over the rivers, even the unspoken presence of the older man. All of it had been leading here, toward this singular moment of recognition. The mind, previously wandering through layers of memory and observation, now aligned fully with awareness, perceiving the intricate interconnections that had been present all along. Alex's own reflection in the window merged with the landscape outside, a visual metaphor of the realization taking root. The boundaries between self and world, observer and observed, past and present, dissolved completely. There was no longer distinction between the train and the journey, between memory and reality. Every detail became a thread in a vast tapestry of existence. Every moment a note in a subtle symphony that had always played, unnoticed, beneath the surface of conscious life. The older man's eyes met Alex's again in the reflection, and this time, Alex could see something more, a gentle acknowledgement of completion, of understanding realized. It was a quiet confirmation that the journey's purpose had been fulfilled, that the night had served as both guide and vessel, and that Alex's awareness had reached a state of clarity previously unavailable. The calm intensity of the man's presence seemed to radiate outward, connecting all elements of the carriage, the train, and the night into a unified whole. Alex felt tears prick at the corners of their eyes, not from sadness, but from a profound sense of alignment. There was understanding, acceptance, and peace all at once, a rare convergence that comes when the mind and the world are fully in accord. The realization was not about change or achievement, but about recognition, understanding what had always been, simply and quietly, present beneath the surface of ordinary experience. The landscape outside mirrored this clarity. Rivers shimmered with luminous patterns, forests rose in deliberate symmetry, and distant hills glowed faintly with moonlight. Everything seemed intentionally aligned, a living reflection of the mind's inner harmony. Alex observed it without judgment, simply taking in the perfection of the unfolding revelation. The train's movement, once merely comforting, now felt like a living pulse, a heartbeat connecting thought, memory, and the vastness of the night. In this moment, Alex recognized that the journey itself had always been the destination. The destination was never a place nor a time. It was understanding, awareness, and the quiet recognition of the interconnectedness of all things. The older man's presence, the rhythmic motion of the train, the shifting landscapes outside, and the reflections within the glass, all had served to bring Alex to this realization. As the train glided forward, the world seemed to stretch infinitely, both outward and inward. Alex's consciousness expanded in a quiet, fluid awareness, merging with memory, thought, and the rhythmic motion of the journey. There was no urgency, no need to act, no requirement to name or label the experience. It simply existed, pure, unforced, and complete. The plot twist had reshaped perception entirely. What had begun as a simple train ride had become an odyssey through the deepest corridors of awareness. Alex understood now that the quiet rhythm of the rails, the landscapes passing outside, the older man, and even the familiar shapes of memory had been components of a living meditation. The journey was a mirror, reflecting consciousness back upon itself, revealing the intricate structure of thought, memory, and being. A soft sigh escaped Alex, a release of tension and wonder. The night had brought clarity. The train had carried them, and the older man had guided without words. The revelation was complete. Every element, every moment, every observation had led to this point, and it was perfect in its quiet inevitability. Alex felt a profound gratitude, not for a destination, but for the journey itself, the unfolding, the noticing, the recognition. And as the train continued to move, carrying them through misty fields and silvered rivers, through shadowed forests and familiar hills, Alex understood fully. This journey would continue, not because of miles traveled or stations passed, but because consciousness is infinite, and the subtle beauty of observation, reflection, and recognition has no end. The night stretched endlessly, serene and complete, carrying them onward, always onward, into the quiet majesty of existence itself. The train continued, gliding smoothly through the night, but the world outside had changed subtly. The shadows seemed softer, the rivers brighter, and the hills more gentle in their curves. The air itself carried a quiet clarity, as if the landscape now reflected the inner understanding Alex had reached. Each detail was no longer merely observed. It was felt, resonating with the newly awakened awareness that had emerged in the previous hours of the journey. Alex leaned back in the seat, letting the quiet pulse of the train guide their thoughts. The older man remained still in the corner, a calm sentinel, no longer merely a presence, but an integral part of the journey's completion. Alex felt a quiet gratitude, a recognition that this guidance had always been present, subtly woven into every motion, every reflection, every fleeting moment of awareness. There was no need to speak. The understanding was shared silently, profoundly, completely. The landscape continued to unfold in gentle rhythm. Fields stretched endlessly, lit by the soft glow of the moon. Forests rose like quiet towers of shadow, and rivers glimmered like silver threads winding through the night. Each element of the scenery now felt alive, carrying both history and memory, exterior and interior, in a seamless unity. Alex felt a deep peace, a sense that the world, consciousness, and self were aligned in perfect harmony. Thoughts drifted gently to the idea of time. The night had felt infinite, yet each moment had been essential, each observation crucial to the unfolding understanding. Alex realized that the journey, though experienced in linear motion, had transcended the usual boundaries of past, present, and future. It was a convergence of awareness, memory, and perception, a quiet affirmation of existence itself. Each mile traveled had been a step through layers of consciousness, each pause a meditation on presence, each observation a doorway to insight. The older man finally rose, stretching with quiet deliberation. His movements were unhurried, graceful, and full of a calm certainty. Alex noticed how he seemed to merge seamlessly with the rhythm of the train, as if his very being was part of the machinery of perception itself. And then, with a subtle nod, he began to move toward the carriage's door. The motion was slow, deliberate, and entirely unremarkable. But Alex understood, intuitively, that it was significant. The train passed through another small station, quiet and empty as before. Alex imagined the countless journeys that had begun and ended there, each unnoticed yet meaningful. And now, in the serene understanding that had taken root, Alex felt a deep appreciation for the ordinary, the overlooked, and the subtle, the moments that often pass unnoticed, yet contain the essence of life itself. A soft breeze drifted through the slightly open window, carrying the scent of damp earth, pine, and something indefinably sweet. Alex closed their eyes briefly, letting the senses take in the night in its entirety. The train's motion, the shifting landscape, and the quiet presence of the older man all blended into a harmonious whole, a perfect equilibrium between inner awareness and outer reality. As the carriage continued to glide, Alex reflected on the nature of journey and destination. It had become clear that the train had been less about arriving somewhere and more about realizing the infinite possibilities within awareness. The revelation had transformed the night into a meditation, the ride into an odyssey of consciousness. Every detail, every observation, every fleeting thought had been an invitation to witness the subtle, interconnected beauty of existence. The older man reached the door, pausing briefly as if to acknowledge Alex one last time. There was no farewell, no explanation, only a profound, unspoken recognition. Alex felt a quiet smile tug at the corners of the mouth, a gentle affirmation of the understanding that had been reached. The man opened the door and stepped out, leaving the train and the night unchanged, yet forever altered in significance. The train moved on, leaving the empty platform behind. Alex gazed out the window, feeling the continuity of the journey in a new way. The rhythm of the rails, the shimmering rivers, the soft outlines of hills and forests, all became a meditation on presence, a quiet celebration of awareness. There was no urgency, no expectation, only a serene unfolding, a sense of harmony that stretched across time, memory, and consciousness itself. Alex's reflection in the glass merged fully with the landscape outside. There was a quiet understanding. The journey would continue, as journeys always do, both outward and inward. The train, the night, the memory, and the mind had converged into a single, coherent awareness. Every mile traveled, every subtle observation, every quiet recognition had been part of a vast, seamless experience. And as the train glided onward into the endless night, Alex felt a gentle serenity settle over them. The plot twist, the realization of consciousness mirrored in the journey, the reflection of the self in the older man, the interweaving of memory and present awareness had revealed its quiet truth. There was no need for further explanation. Understanding had been reached. The night stretched infinitely, serene, complete, and calm. Alex leaned back in the seat, breathing slowly, letting the motion of the train carry them onward. The journey was both over and eternal. Every shadow, every river, every hill, every reflection held meaning, yet remained fluid, ever shifting. Alex felt a profound peace, a deep connection to the world, to consciousness, and to themselves. And in that quiet, infinite space, the train moved on, carrying Alex into the boundless, luminous continuity of awareness, a journey without end, serene and perfect in its silent, enduring grace.